Hello, I'm Dinus the Mirror.
Number 2, Liberia. Let's bring in our brother, Carla Genesis.
Yeah,
you got 5 minutes, brother. Knock it out.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Yeah, look, the whole thing is this. The reason why I took a year and a half to write a novel, right? Now, you know I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that novel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that novel for the community, right? And I didn't even really make any money off the book. The book's selling, but I ain't even gotten any royalties yet from it yet. Look, when I read this history, I knew the history of Liberia for a long time, right? But I was on the thing where I was just like anybody else. I hated American Liberians for years. You know, I was like, yo, we got to be native, indigenous Africans. Then, it was like 6 years ago, right? I always liked Liberia, right? But from a different standpoint. But I always hated the idea of American Liberians or African Americans returning to Africa, building a nation, and all stuff like that. I could not identify it. I did not realize the majesty and the magnitude of what they did. Think about this, in the 19th century. In the 19th century, with those slave ships plying the ocean, they sailed back and built the republic. When I actually sat back and read, and what happened was this. I read something, and I read some books. I bought some books on Liberia, right? And this one book was written by a Jewish author, right? And I noticed like the whole narrative, and I learned some things about some of the massacres that the settlers went through with the natives, and how the settlers stopped the slave trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I read this one book, right, in a newspaper article, and they were talking about Liberia, and they were saying, well, the American Liberians went back there and oppressed the native Liberians. And I said, well, why didn't he mention the fact that the native Liberians were involved in the slave trade? Then I saw that was a common theme. I said, now, why is the world taking sides? No, why is it that everybody knew it was clear that slavery was going on the coast, and the American Liberians' first rule was to stop the slave trade with the help of the British and the United States Navy? Stop the slave trade. In fact, most of the slaves that were intercepted on the high seas were returned to Liberia. They were just dropped off. You were coming from the Cameroon, whatever. They dropped them off, and the Republic of Liberia settled these people as a place of refuge. It was a place of refuge for black African Americans, ex-slaves, and free people who wanted to live in a black ruled republic. I'm saying to myself, think about that. In a world of white domination, white lynchings, white persecution, a black republic. That means the highest person in the land knows that his interests and your interests are the same thing. No black person in America could ever say, even when Barack Obama's president, because Barack Obama's interest is not with the average black person. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, when you look at Liberia, how they was able to build a country that had no wars for most of its history, how they was able to have sovereignty, ports, port of entry law, their own customs, their own commerce, their own navy, all these things and everything like that, tall buildings, schools, institutions. They built factories, you know. They had shipping companies. They had their own wealthy class of people. They had successful planters, farmers, manufacturers. They had all those things, and they were free and they were happy. And they could tell any white person that didn't like what they and I wrote about that in my novel too. Any white person in the country that was visiting, if they don't like it, get the hell out. And they deported white people that were living there all the time, and many times beat them in the streets. And I'm saying to myself, how on? And then by the 1970s, Liberia was on the eve of industrialization. It was the most powerful black political state in the world. Liberia brokered the Lancaster Agreement, which ended white rule in Zimbabwe. Liberia negotiated the transfer of power of Southwest Africa from South Africa in the UN. Liberia brokered peace in the Congo and set troops in. Liberia brokered the war in Biafra and brought the Biafra War to an end. Nasser, the conflict between the Israelis and Egypt, whatnot. Liberia was a major player in brokering a peace. So Liberia, Monrovia was a powerhouse in negotiating in the Congo, throughout Africa. It was the most powerful state. It was an elder state. All the statesmen in Africa, from Patrice Lumumba to Nelson Mandela, all of Kwame Nkrumah, all studied in Liberia under Tubman and the other different Liberian political elite. Now, with that amount of power, beautiful country. You look at Liberia, the pictures from the 1960s, beautiful hotels on the Atlantic coast, beautiful streets, beautiful cities, clean, orderly, and everything. How in the world is that so-called a failure?
It's not.
How in the world could anybody call that a failure?
It's not.
I want to ask you about your running mate. I don't know if you saw. Well, I saw the day that a news report broke that Amy Klobuchar was being vetted, and a lot of people on social media, they're not too happy about that. And it's because they want your running mate to be a black woman. I don't know if you saw the op-ed in the Washington Post by some of the leading black women voices in this country, and they feel since black women are such a loyal voting bloc, and black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, they have things they want from you, and one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. Multiple.
You know, thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks. I will come back.
All right.
I look forward to seeing you in person.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, pal. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Charlamagne.
Really, really, really be hard. And let me conclude and turn it over to Kamala, who says, what the hell am I doing with this guy right now? But all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do in terms of raw numbers. We're going to have to be working with a whole group of people that, in fact, are the single most diverse democracy in American history and anywhere in the world. And we got to figure out how to unify this country. And you've been the leader.
We went from building our own country, having our own airline, being the second republic ever, the second black republic ever, never being colonized. Free slaves decided to take their own destiny in their own hands, to take their destiny, control their own destiny, and build the Republic of Liberia. We went from that to, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I don't think anything else needs to be said on this matter.